Ron and Brian podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
And good evening, everybody. It is Monday night. It is 8 o'clock, and it is time for episode 261 of the Ron and Brian podcast. Brian, please tell me your Wi-Fi is not frozen again this evening.
No, right now it is working. For those that are in the know, if you know, you know, we tried recording this episode last night, Sunday. However, it was unfortunately disrupted when Verizon Fios in the 1007 zip code here in Manhattan, New York, just crapped out for a good hour and a half. And by the time that we were able to get Ron and Brian podcast Studio North up and running, we were unable to get Podcast South to crawl out from its slumber. I'm assuming you were getting ready for bed when I called.
It was an early Sunday night bedtime for me after a long day of imbibing and relaxing on Saturday. But we'll get into that.
We're going to get into our weekend because we had a joint weekend.
We did, yes. It was Ron and Brian take Philadelphia. But in regards to the Wi-Fi, Brian, there have been rumors. Matt's heard from his people on the street that it might be an instance of domestic terrorism trying to block our podcast from broadcasting last night. Have you heard anything similar?
Well, I did take Mrs. Bryan to a off-site CIA black house where she was aggressively interrogated by some of Dick Cheney's personally hand-picked interrogators. They tried the standing position. They shoved her in the little box, asking her questions, whether, getting her to break to see if she could disclose where Osama bin Laden was and or what was the Wi-Fi password. She did not break at all, claimed no knowledge of anything.
Excellent.
They dumped her off on the street corner of 34th Street and First Avenue here in Manhattan. I came to get her. She was obviously shell-shocked from her ordeal. But I do feel a little bit safer now.
All right. Well, that's really all that matters, Brian.
Isn't it?
All right. Well, let's get things rolling with this Monday night edition of the podcast. It's time for Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Salud.
Sláinte.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the
Brian,
week.
what are you drinking tonight?
I have got my hold on. Am I using my AC Beer Festival drink cozy?
It would appear that way, yes.
Well, then let me take that off and show you that I am rocking the 6 Point the Crisp Pils. I believe I've had this before. But could not find on my podcast notes book. I could not see any results of it. So right off the bat, look at that beautiful color.
Oh, it's nice.
Look at that. Look at that Christmas. Ooh, look at that. Ron, you're looking at the Crisp featuring Tet Nang and Hallertau hops, 100% sourced directly from Germany. It gives the Crisp that signature floral aroma. Cargill Pilsner malt is the backbone and helps finish this beautiful, snappy, and clean beer. Legit pills with a hop aroma that leaps from the glass into my mouth. The Crisp, it blasts you with a huge floral aroma that contains crisp, clean, and refreshing everything. Coming in at a 5.4 ABV, Beer Advocate gives it a score of 88%. I'm going to taste it right now and give you my score.
I mean, it's I've had that one before. It's 6 Point makes a ton of great beers, and that is just another one of them.
I'm going to say this to you. This is probably the tastiest Pilsner I've ever had.
Really?
there's so much flavor to it. Usually Pilsners are, they're very crisp,
Yes.
but they don't have that hoppy flavor to it. This I would almost put on the spectrum of an IPA, which just shows you how little I know about beer and the way people brew it, that I would consider this almost in the IPA category. I mean, just a beautiful color, lovely taste, a lovely taste. Ron,
Yes.
what are you drinking?
So last night, I'm going to the same state I went to last night, going down to the great state of West Virginia, who we make fun of from time to time. But I did bring back some beers from my trip to West Virginia this week. And this is one from Parkersburg Brewing Company in Parkersburg, West Virginia. This is their Cell Block 304, their Honey Brown Ale. It was a gold medal award winner in the 2016 World Beer Cup. American malts are combined with British specialty malts to craft the cereal profile of this brown ale. It is then criminally hopped with a blend of English hops that are balanced against the toasty malts and a touch of local honey, clocking in at 5.6%. Looks good there. Got a nice brownish hue to it. Let's see how this tastes.
He's taking a sip, ladies and gentlemen.
That is tasty. It's not, I wouldn't say not an all-time great, but it's definitely a decent drinkable beer.
As you when you finish your second one, walk me through what are the flavors you're experiencing right now. I'm assuming you're gonna get the honey.
I'm tasting both honey and brown.
How does a color taste? What is it when you say you taste brown? What does that taste like?
Picture what the color brown would taste like to you.
Not a good one. I'm thinking poop.
Not poop, not exactly poop. No, I wouldn't give it poop. It's got a kind of a dankness to it, if you will. Definitely, you can taste the mix of multiple hops in there.
All right. Interesting.
So, I mean, again, decent. Not as good as the beer I had last night. I had the Big Timber Lager Pils, which was a good one.
And we know exactly who to blame for you wasting that beer.
It's a damn shame. A damn shame. Well, you know what I also had to do last night without you, Brian?
What you have to do?
Beef of the week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, and I can almost guess, but what's bothering you this week?
Now, the easy one is going to be the unstable wireless internet that Verizon Fios puts out here in the Northeast United States of America. That's the easy go-to. You and I, and also longtime fans of the show, remember what a difficult time I had in terms of my computers, my audio recording, when we first started doing the show. I was
a long history here, without a doubt.
I would not have blamed you back in the day for dropping me as your podcast partner for somebody with a MacBook computer. I get that. However, you stuck through and we're here together. We're still here. Episode 261. They said it would never happen. And here we are. But no, that is not going to be my beef of the week.
Okay. Then I'm encouraged to hear what that is.
Oh, you weren't encouraged when you thought it was going to be my unstable wireless?
I mean, that was kind of low-hanging fruit, to be honest with you.
No. Mine is, my beef of the week this week is the oversharing on social media this past week of people in the New York, New Jersey area of the skyline where they were currently located, as the smoky haze was coming down from California, Freudian slip there, from Canada, where they are having their own issue with wildfires that were coming down, and I believe contributed to on the I think airnow.org had us at 400 cotulions per gross. I believe that's the
so they had you at 6.25 gigawatts, perhaps.
I thought it was 8 point. What was it? 8 point. It wasn't 8.1. 6.0. Come on, somebody gets. Anywho, anyway, literally for about, I would say 48 hours, I would say 2 out of 3 posts that I saw on Facebook and on Instagram were people posting pictures of their orange sky, which I will say in New York, it got orange.
Yes, it
And
did.
in New Jersey, it got orange. 1.21 gigawatts. There you go. Janelle's got it. There you go. Bam. 1.21 gigawatts. Can you imagine if Doc gave Marty McFly 8.1 gigawatts? I mean, all he needed was he only needed 1.21 gigawatts.
That's all.
But it was just, it got to the point where it felt like, okay, I've seen your photo. Now you have to see my photo. And here's a photo of me pointing in this direction. Here's a photo of me looking in this direction. And 3 hours later, here's another photo. It just got to the point of like, we get it. Everybody, there's definitely something going on in the New York City air right now. There's something going on in the Northeast United States. It's not good. It could be worse. There could be COVID raging through the Northeast. I mean, we all remember those days, Ron, with the refrigerated trucks parked outside of hospitals, funeral homes, the forklifts carrying out filled body bags into those refrigerator containers. We don't want to go back to those days.
No, we definitely don't want to revisit that.
We saw that orange sky, and everybody just said, I'm going to go outside, take a photo, and I'm going to post it on social media. And it just, it literally irked and irritated me to the point where I almost wanted to delete my social media accounts.
The only orange sky we like to see is the one in the background for Hot Podcaster Summer.
Hot Podcaster Summer.
Now that's a
Ron,
nice background. Yes, sir.
That is a beautiful background. Ron, what's bothering you?
So my beef is spouses who don't pay attention to areas where there are red light cameras. So I'm going to say that there may be somebody who lives in this house with me about a month ago gets an envelope in the mail from the violations or citations, whatever, from Philadelphia. Sure enough, ran a red light turning on to Roosevelt Boulevard, boom, $100. Great. Today, I pick up the mail and yet another violation, this time here in Montgomery County, turning on to like Welsh Road or something. Another $100.
So is it she's making a right on red when you're not supposed to? Or is
No,
it just the fact that she's going right through red?
She's like probably hitting it right at, she's probably going through yellow and then it changes red. And you have like about 0.3 of a second. So if you're going into that intersection as it's turning red, you're going to get a photo take and you're going to get it.
Wow. I mean, I knew she was a rule breaker. I knew that she had a complete disregard for motor vehicle laws in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I just did not realize that her carelessness would start to hurt you financially.
I mean, she wants the new backyard here, but she's spending all this money on red light camera violations
and sneakers. Don't forget.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, good callback. She's rushing to get to the parking garages that she's paid for. Very nice callback to the beginning of the pandemic when it took her like 6 months to cancel her parking garage with her job.
And that was a couple $100 a month, no?
Allie, yeah. Allie asking if she's from New Jersey. Actually, yes, she is from New Jersey. So
I'd like to know how Allie knows that.
Maybe that's the thing in New Jersey. But this is what drives me crazy is by law, they have to tell you that there are red light cameras at these intersections wherever there are red light cameras. So you see it posted, red light camera in effect. So you should know. Little difference though, this is not a speed camera. This is just a red light camera. Her ex from New Jersey used to run Philly Reds all the time. Yellow lights in New Jersey were longer. That might be a defense for her to use when she goes to court.
I've been saying that a lot of things are longer in Queens. So I got my last girlfriend.
All right, Brian, what all do we want to start with this week?
Oh my God. Well, I think most importantly, we did tell a lot of people over this weekend, and I think they're watching the show now. First off, I do think that we have to speak about the weekend that we had. The great people over at Alex's Lemonade Stand. Just a great charity.
Yes.
This weekend, they had their annual Great Chefs event of Philadelphia. They, over the last years that you have gone with Mrs. Ron, I believe the Jardis were there with you last year. And they reached out to us with all the good publicity that you have provided them over the past year. And they said, listen, we'd like you to come down to be our guest at Alex's Lemonade Stand's Great Chefs of Philadelphia event 2023. Amazing hotel. They put us up in the Ritz-Carlton. Well, I've never stayed at a Ritz-Carlton before.
No, it was very, very fancy.
To me, that's a $400 or $500 room. I know that you and I kind of, I don't want to say it got into a tiff, but when you were insisting that we pay for our room because you felt bad that the charity was paying for our hotel room, and I was just like, no, Ron, let's let this one slide, because that was easily, to me, a $500 room, Ritz-Carlton on a Saturday.
In a major city. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So I was very glad that I was able to talk you out of paying for the room. But, the hospitality that we were shown, we walked in immediately. We got our wristbands that let everybody know that we were there. We're immediately handed a beverage. They'd set up a drink cart right by the entrance. Where we were, separated from everybody else, and they said, "Hey, you can get your drink there." So before the event even started, I had in my hand, what did I have in my hand? I don't even remember. It was a tequila-based drink.
Yes, it was
coconut in it.
That was the one with the strawberry horchata and coconut. It was a jicama highball, I think they called it.
Jicama highball is that what you chose?
That's what I had as well. It was very nice. So for people who don't know, Alex's Lemonade Stand raises money for battling childhood cancer, and Great Chefs is one of their fundraising events that brings I think they had about 30 chefs in the house. I
thought it was about 35 chefs. So we start off. Let's walk through. So we start off. I had the Mezcalero, which is Casamigos Mezcal Joven with lemon juice, honeyed grapefruit, and sage leaf.
Very fancy.
I mean, that was delicious. And then what else did? And then we walked through, and literally, you can't ask for a better classy event. Whereas 2 weekends ago, I went to Atlantic City for their beer and music festival. Lines were ridiculously long. The wait for beer was just, not fun. No. However, at this event, I would say I never had to wait more than maybe 90 seconds. You had 30, 35 chefs that each had a signature dish that they were giving you samples of. And I would like to point out, not small portions.
No.
There were pancakes, there were Korean meatballs, there were, what were some of the other things we had?
We had
I had a fish taco.
Fish tacos. We had a bunch of different salads, chicken salad, fresh salad.
You had some spicy sausage, if I'm not correct.
I had a hot sausage. I had the
seafood
chorizo is what I had. I think
that's what the seafood chorizo. And then also, let's not forget, there were also, I would say, probably about a dozen local breweries that were giving out samples of their beer. And there was also, and this is where I think my afternoon started to take a turn, was when I discovered the signature Tito's vodka and lemonade. Lemon juice. No, it was lemonade.
Yeah.
By the way, delicious combo if anybody's looking for a drink next time you invite me over. Lemonade with Tito's. Oh, was that delicious. I had several of those. At one point, I was ordering them 2 at a time simply because I didn't know when I was going to get cut off, which led us into the auction part. This is really the part where you realize you're making a difference for the children with cancer. Started off just a beautiful ceremony. The actual girl whose name that the foundation is based off of, Alex. I assume it's short for Alexandra.
You would be correct.
Her parents were there talking about. They were talking about their daughter, as well as a lot of good that has come out of her legacy. All the millions of dollars that have been raised, the children who have been helped. They told a story there where there was a parent who they needed some kind of bone marrow transplant for their child. They got a call, like, you've got like an hour to get here. And because of Alex's Lemonade Stand, the charity, the parents were able to get transportation, hotel accommodations, and the child was able to get into the hospital for that bone marrow. I mean, it was just, it makes you realize.
Stuff. You would have to be, I would think, a very hard-hearted, cruel individual to have said anything negative during the speeches that were going on at that time.
Sure. I mean, it was really terrible because I was standing off to the side. I don't know how close you were to where I was. But I heard at one point somebody make the comment of, that money seems to be wasted because children are still getting cancer. Wildly offensive.
Yeah.
Horrifically offensive.
Agreed.
At one point, the Alex's father, I believe, was giving a speech, which I felt was completely appropriate considering the prestige that he holds within the organization. And I think he was on page 3 of his 4-page speech when I heard somebody mutter, "Wrap it up."
Yeah,
which I just wildly inappropriate.
Very inappropriate. I've heard the foundation may not allow that person back in next year.
And I wouldn't blame him. I would love to show up there, and as you and I are escorted in, to turn around and see that person being stopped at the door.
I think
I will say this. I did see John Jardy laughing a lot while this was going on. So it must have been somebody he was hanging near.
One thing we did forget to mention when we took a cab from the hotel down to the event. There was 4 of us, and usually I'm used to cabs that can seat 4 people. I guess the cab we happened to grab normally doesn't, so I sat on literally a pile of garbage in the front seat as this taxi took us down to the Great Chefs event.
Yes, and I give you credit because the representative from the foundation that had reached out and really took care of us so much. She was like, "We'll get you car service. We'll get you a Lincoln Navigator for you and your group." And we're like, "No, we'll take care of this. We don't want you to incur even more of a cost." So the fact that you were able to humble yourself to sitting on a pile of garbage in a cab to only then be walked in and be the VIP. Next year, I heard there was talk of us doing a live podcast from the event next year. So
we're already lining up some sponsorship money. So
absolutely, Ron. Do you have the website of Alex's Lemonade of where we can, where people can look into that organization if they would like?
Let's see here. That's a good question.
It's okay if you could have just said no. I mean, we can move on.
I believe it's alsf.org, but I can't quote. Don't quote me on that.
All right. Well, while you talk about it, I'm going to look it up. Alex's Lemonade. It's alexslemonade.org.
So the event wraps up right around 4:00, and we think, hey, let's go. Phillies played the Dodgers at 4:00. Let's go catch a baseball game. And shockingly, the Philadelphia Phillies were sold out for their 4:00 game on Saturday.
Yes, they were.
And the resale was ridiculous. Like the standing room tickets they have available, $107 on StubHub.
My God, that was outrageous.
So we skip that. We go to Xfinity Live to catch a breather, relax a little bit. Have a couple beverages outside. I mean, it was a beautiful day out, without question. Beautiful day. Some of us, took that opportunity to, kind of recharge their batteries, take a little nap in these very comfortable Adirondack chairs they had outside the Victory Beer Hall. Oh, wait, is that you, Brian?
It looks like me. I can't really tell from that angle. I normally sleep with my mouth closed, so I'm not sure that was me. By the way, I would like to take a little. Can we give me a little compliment of the of my shirt
the
that I'm
lemon
wearing?
theme shirt that you're wearing to
I don't know if you
fit
can
the
put it.
event.
Yeah, I don't know if Matt can put it up. I just put a link in the private chat of a. Okay, can you not? I just put a group a beautiful photo of you and I at the event.
Okay.
I don't know if you can share it, but it would be great if you can. But yeah, so it's Alex's lemonade stand, and the organizer said to us, "Listen, everybody dresses lemon themed because it's Alex's lemonade foundation." So we've got matching lemon shirts, which were just beautiful. They were. A lot of people are saying that these were the nicest shirts they've ever seen. Look at that. Can you zoom in on that just to show how beautiful we are? Look at us fighting childhood cancer. One cup at a time. Why are you zooming in at my crotch? Jesus Christ, man. What is wrong with you? All right, Matt, slow down. Slow down. I know his heart is just pumping. I know that his pupils are heavily dilated. But look at us there in our
Yep.
Our beautiful khaki pants, our matching lime shirts. Look at that. Thank you for your support fighting childhood cancer. Ron and Brian, Alex's Lemonade Stand. People, it's a great event. I'm not sure how much tickets were. I mean, we never even, got to the point of looking. But really, if you have the opportunity to go take a look at it next year, please go do it. It is for a great charity and a great service and great people.
And after we allowed Brian to recharge his batteries a little bit, we went over to Chinatown to Yakitori Boy, which is a kind of a tapas style restaurant with karaoke rooms, and belted out a couple hours of karaoke while we continued to drink. The night didn't go off the rails, but there was a lot of drinking going on.
There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
Yes.
You, Mrs. Ron, me, Mrs. Brian, the Jardy clan, it was just a lot of fun people having fun together. Some of the high points of karaoke, every song you sang.
Everyone, huh?
Every song you sang was a high point for me.
Wow. Well, that's very nice of you.
I personally did, my high point was doing Forever in Blue Jeans by Neil Diamond.
You mean you did crush that?
It talks, but it don't sing and dance, and it don't walk.
People, this is the kind of stuff you want to hear me sing. Join our Patreon.
Didn't
Go
you
behind the paywall?
Didn't you also sing a little Bee Gees as well?
I did Nights on Broadway by the Bee Gees. I really was struggling to get those high notes.
Yeah.
And it was stuck in that little not quite good phase for way too long of the song.
Billy asking, did I have any tortillas? No, did not have those.
No
Janelle asking
tortillas.
for a video. We'll have to see if we can get the releases signed for that one video from the karaoke room.
Yes. There's a spot on Brian's lens. It's driving me crazy.
So anyway, spent
hold
the
on.
night.
I'm going to just cover the thing. Where is the spot? Do you see any spot?
I don't see a spot, but that's I'm not on as high resolution a screen as we know William uses. There you go. Or is that on my screen? I don't know. So we spent the night at the Ritz-Carlton, lovely evening, and then wrapped it up with breakfast the next morning at Green Eggs Cafe. Brian,
Does
if you don't
Philly
mind
know how to do breakfast?
Brian, you indulged a little bit with their stuffed banana French toast, I believe it was.
I've never seen this photo before. You never showed me this.
Oh yeah, I took that photo while you were figuring out how to attack that pile of sweet cream in front of you.
I'm going to tell you, I embarrassed myself in terms of how much of that I was able to put away. I think I basically was able to put away one piece of French toast and one layer of the sweet cream with bananas.
Let's kind of zoom in on that French toast because it was ridiculous. 3 huge pieces of French toast with just bananas and just sweet cream in the middle.
So, And what was odd was I don't know if those were they had the consistency of a plantain, but they were bananas. So like they were just nice crunchy bananas. Maybe they were dehydrated, possibly. But holy wow, was that I mean, just decadent.
Yeah.
As you could see, I drink my coffee like I like my. That was only $18, William. William wants to know $18.
They were very
Janelle
reasonably
says
priced.
yes, very. Janelle wants to know whether I blew up the bathroom. If it makes her feel better. No, I did not. I have gone twice today, which is a lot more than my normal rate of every 3-4 days. So that can tell you, just cleaning the system out.
And I had the chicken and waffles Benedict, which was fantastic.
And where's your photo, Ron?
Well, you didn't take a photo of me, so I mean, I guess whose fault is that, really?
Wow,
It's
offensive.
But anyway,
that's offensive.
A great weekend in Philadelphia. Thank you, Alex's Lemonade Stand. We will be definitely back next year for Great Chefs. Again, podcast may even be a sponsor of the Great Chefs event next year. We will see. Brian, what else do we want to get to this week? We've got a ton of stories to get to.
I think we first have to. Where do we even start? I mean, so much happened this past week. I think we kind of have to start with celebrity obituaries.
Yeah, we lost a lot of people this past week, and so I think we start at the top. For those wrestling fans out there, this one hurt. I mean, you knew it was coming eventually, but the Iron Sheik passing away at the age of 81, WWE Hall of Famer, former world champion, the transitional champion from Bob Backlund to Hulk Hogan, responsible for the birth of Hulkamania, but more legendarily known for his Howard Stern interviews later in life.
You know what? And that's a part that actually disappoints me is that right now when people think and talk about the Iron Sheik, they make Howard Stern references when, he clearly wasn't in the best physical or mental state, and so many people don't have the reference point of an Iranian in the late 70s being the world championship holder in the United States in a wrestling federation.
Right.
I got into wrestling right after he had won the belt from Bob Backlund. So we're probably talking, what are you talking, mid 80s at that point?
It would have been 84, I believe.
Okay, so I got into it in 84, and I remember watching him wrestle and beat up American wrestlers. And I obviously I was not quite aware of, that wrestling was, I don't want to say fake. It's not fake. It's predetermined.
Scripted,
we'll call it that.
staged.
Scripted. I like that. Yeah. And just watching this Iranian, and I'm 12, and we are still, America is still smarting from the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis when our employees of the American embassy in Iran were taken hostage, I believe, for 444 days. And albeit it'll never proven, but we're pretty sure that Ronald Reagan had them held even longer so that they would be released after he became president. Oddly, according to William Esquire, not the worst thing that Reagan did as president.
No.
Was arranged to have those hostages out, but to have an Iranian sitting there, on my TV on Saturday mornings, waving the Iranian flag, talking about how great Iran was and how terrible America was and how he would step on the American. I mean, it genuinely angered me, not to the point where I was going to do anything about it, but I was just like, I can't believe that this is happening and nobody's stepping in and no one's going to just shut him down. And then he teamed up with Nikolai Volkov.
Yes.
And then the two of them, they really just, they ran over the tag team core that the WWE had to put in front of them for many years.
Yeah, definitely one of the best heels in the business and just a great interview. So we will miss Iron Sheik. You not so much. You had Iron Sheik in the Ron and Brian death pool. So you collected, what was it? 11 points on that, 18 points?
Yeah, but these are those. I think I collected 19, but these are points you don't want to score.
Understood.
But wasn't he arrested with Big John Studd?
No, he was arrested with Hacksaw Jim Duggan,
That's
pulled
who it
over and
was.
arrested for having marijuana, and that was back when it was still people still believed in the
Very
reality
much
of it.
so.
So that was everybody was kind of shocked at that.
I remember there were two huge moments that I think really kind of lifted the veil of it. The first one was I want to say his name was John Stossel
Oh yeah,
on 2020 when he went into Madison Square Garden with cameras and interviewed some of the wrestlers. I believe he was beaten up by I couldn't tell you.
Dr. D. Dwight Schultz.
My goodness, you are good. He was
Slapped him
beaten up,
upside the head.
but they made a point of showing you some of the wrestlers that were talking to each other in the ring, working through moves. They showed one of the wrestlers cutting himself. And up to that point, I genuinely had no idea that there was anything not on the up and up about it. I mean, what should have given it away was that here was a sport that was being filmed in a warehouse in Connecticut. And the New York Post was not giving a lot of coverage to it. But when I saw one guy start to chew on some guy's forehead and spin into the air, I genuinely thought that he had a chunk of his forehead. I was like a chunk. It was just then, and then also. So it was the 2020 story, and then it was the when the Iron Sheik got arrested with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, because they were in the middle of just having
they were doing a program at that point. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was moments like that was when I was just like, whoa, wait a second, that doesn't jive. What should have given it away was at the end of every match, both guys walked out of the ring into the same exit.
Yeah.
Like you would think that they'd be fighting each other.
You would think, but now you know the truth. Next up, passing away, famous comedian, friend of the podcast, Pat Cooper. Passing away at the age of 93. Again, another guy who really extended his career with some just classic appearances on the Howard Stern show in the 80s and the 90s. He passed away Tuesday night at his home in Las Vegas, again at the age of 93.
He was one of the biggest names that Stern would get on back when I was listening to Stern.
Yes. At that point, it was Pat Cooper and it was Grandpa Al Lewis from the Munsters. Yes. Those were like the two you always listened to whenever they came on.
Well, Pat Cooper would get on and he would just get so worked up within just literally half a second. He'd become so animated.
Who told you that? Who told you that?
He would just get so angry, and then it would be good because you could hear, Jackie the Joke Man and whatnot just pushing his buttons.
Yeah. Oh, and Artie was the same way. Like they would just get him going, and it was hilarious. And eventually they had a falling out because Stern put Pat Cooper's estranged son on at one point, and his former wife, and then it just that kind of ended things.
Rightfully so. It's kind of a shitty thing to do.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, we keep talking about putting Matt's cocaine dealer on the show.
Well, we should do that.
Try to confront him, but Matt's like, no, that's disrespectful.
Also passing away this week, and I don't know that there was a lot of dry eyes for this one. Pat Robertson, hateful evangelicist and host of the 700 Club.
He always looked like a Curious George. Curious George was less angry.
And this was, again, he was also 93 years old, but he seemed like he was in his 90s for the last 30 years.
Yeah, he aged early and then kind of stayed steady. But I mean, listen, he was one of the, I don't want to say original televangelists, but he was one of the biggest mainstream televangelists in this country, and really practiced a religion that was just based on a very close-minded approach of what God wanted. And really, how do I say this? He really promoted a narrative of how the behavior of others brought terrible calamities to us as humanity. Whenever there was anything that would happen, a hurricane would hit, South Florida, he'd be like, "Oh, it's because of all the homosexuals in Florida." And then God is angry. And then there would be an earthquake in Ecuador. And he'd be like, "It's all the heathen Protestants who don't believe in." And it was just.
Well, there was one of the videos I saw was after 9/11. Jerry Falwell was blaming 9/11 on
Sure.
homosexuality and intersex or interracial marriages and things of that nature. And Pat Robertson basically agreed with him. Was like, yeah, it's because of this sin. So he, it was again one of these religious people that feed off of the hate and fear that they can build in their followers.
Sure.
And what they can cherry pick from the Bible to really rile people up.
And also collecting their money as much as possible.
Yeah. I wonder, I didn't see what he was worth when he passed away.
I don't even want to know the number. I will say that when I was in college, my college roommates and I would watch the 700 Club for pure entertainment value.
All right, so let's look at celebrity net worth. So they are estimating his net worth at the time of death as $100 million.
Absolutely tragic. America deserves its downfall. If there are people in America who have $100 million of disposable income that he can, and that's his net worth. That's not even putting into effect how much of it he has spent.
Right. I'm just figuring out how many poor people cocaine can you feed for $100 million? Let's see if Google gives me an answer. Jeff Bezos donated $100 million to American food banks in April of 2020.
Did he actually donate it, or did he say he was going to work on it?
So at No Kid Hungry, they say that $1 can help provide 10 meals for kids. So technically, Pat Robertson could have provided 1 billion meals for children with his net worth, but I don't believe he did.
No offense. No, I'm just calling. I'm questioning that math there. What kind of meal are you providing a kid for 10 cents?
It's they buy in bulk, Brian. I think is what it comes down to.
I mean, you have to buy several Sam's Clubs worth of Cheerios to get it down to 10 cents a meal.
But kudos to William Esquire, who picked Pat Robertson in the death pool. Up next, former Italian Prime Minister Brian. I'm not going to get this name right, so I'm going to ask you to say Silvio Berlusconi.
Berlusconi. Listen, as somebody who's a quarter Italian, I will pronounce it properly. Silvio Berlusconi, the king of the bunga bunga parties.
Passing away at the age of 86. Here is a photograph of him later in life.
Perfect hairline.
Feel like he had some work done. I feel like there may be some Botox in the forehead. The hairline is sprayed on. He actually looks like an AI generated photo.
Well, first off, I was going to say it genuinely looks like somebody CGI'd the hair,
right?
Because that hairline and that hair color does not look natural. You know what always gives it away? The teeth.
Yeah.
If somebody still has their natural teeth at that age, they do become smaller, and you can see they start to rot.
Right. But here's a guy who, was elected prime minister in 1994. He was an entertainer that, developed a huge income, huge network. I think he owned a few networks and really rode that to becoming prime minister.
And then he was a celebrity. He became a celebrity politician,
without a doubt.
And the thing became, he came into power, and it was always just talk, like most Italian politicians, just the allegations of corruption.
Yeah,
links with the mafia. And just taking bribes left and right. And really what all he really wanted to do was just surround himself with models, prostitutes, and easy women, and have parties in his home.
So then why go into politics? Like, I think that's where these guys go wrong, is like you can lead a lascivious lifestyle outside of the public eye.
I believe it's narcissism. for you to reach that level in society where you can literally just kind of snap your fingers and have so many people attack, you automatically just start to believe the narrative that you deserve to be in that kind of position, and therefore you should be, as powerful as it can get. Obviously, there you have politics, um, and it's a trap that is hard to not follow through.
All right. And our final celebrity obituary this week. And this one, Brian, I know this one hit you pretty hard.
It did.
The Unabomber, Ted
Yep.
Kaczynski, taking his life at the age of 81, getting caught. Well, he was arrested, 20 some years ago?
Oh, I think I read that he's been in prison for 28 years.
Okay.
He's had some health problems of late. I remember we were talking about over the weekend. Originally, I thought that he was still at Supermax in Florence, Colorado, but I read that he had recently, maybe post-pandemic, he had been transferred to a federal medical facility in North Carolina. They did not disclose what his medical condition was, but they had taken him out, and he was in a federal prison that was there for medical care. He had some type of serious disease that they were treating him for. I wonder how much that played a part in his decision to commit suicide, as opposed to, knowing that he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I feel like if you're going to put 28 years into prison, it just seems, something must have happened to make him wake up one day and just say, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, you would think so. So he sent out homemade bombs from 1978 to 1995, killing 3 and injuring 23, with the goal of pushing the collapse of the modern social order. He was finally caught after he made various media outlets release his 35,000-word manifesto, of which his brother actually recognized some of the phrases used in the manifesto. Sure. And called the FBI on his own brother.
Yeah. Did you read the Unabomber's manifesto?
I did not. It's a little too wordy for me.
I've read it a couple times over the course of my lifetime. When I was, me, there's certain things that kind of hit into the zeitgeist that just command my undivided attention. I was obsessed with the Unabomber. There was something I found so fascinating about somebody who could, in a low technological way, create so much terror. I mean, there were signs in every post office that were distributed to the workers that were giving them heads ups on things to look for on packages to try to identify a bomb that he had sent. To have an understanding that this guy was national. He would go after what seemed to be a connection between universities. Employees of several universities were victims of his bombs, as were some airline employees. So hence that's how they got the name Unabomber. Right. And what was just fascinating was how, especially now, looking back 30 years after, his reign of terror, but you look back on it and how now it has become such a mainstream argument of technology has been just handed this free pass into our society, that we've been fed this story of, technology is good, embrace the technology. And how the narrative is starting to become, well, maybe this technology is not so good. There are some harmful side effects of the technology. You're seeing people who are, struggling to interact with others because they're spending so much time online by themselves. You're seeing literally internet forums where people are starting to become radicalized into thoughts and beliefs that they would not normally have had access to. You're looking at a unhappiness level amongst teens and millennials that have, never really been rivaled in previous generations. And a lot of people are saying these are the effects of society. We're having a more and more difficult, time connecting with each other, genuinely, in person. And these were all things that literally were considered terroristic views 30 years ago.
Right. And now it sounds like you may become the next Unabomber, Brian.
I'm telling you, when I was reading this stuff, I remember when the Washington Post published his entire manifesto,
Okay.
I made my father take me to a newsstand that had out of town newspapers so we could buy a Washington Post. Because if I remember correctly, the New York Times only printed portions of it, not all 30,000+ words. The Washington Post published all of it. And I wanted a copy of the Washington Post, which I still have somewhere in my apartment. I'm not sure
Right.
where, but I remember seeing it recently. But yeah, that's I still have it, and I will. I've read it a couple times over the years, and each time I read it, it's he makes better and better points. And obviously, here's a guy that was a genius.
Right.
Taught at UC Berkeley, went to Harvard. And then quit his job, literally bought like a 200 square foot cabin in the middle of Montana, no running water, no electricity, and basically lived a life of a hermit for a good 20 years or so.
And kudos also to William Esquire. He too picked Ted Kaczynski in the 2023 Ron and Brian death pool. So he now has a pretty commanding lead in the death pool, sitting right now at 76 points.
He's got 76. The next point person, myself, has 38.
He has also tied the record for most picks in a year at 5. So that record's now shared with William, former champs Jocelyn and Andrew H. So we'll see. I mean, we're only at the halfway.
Not even halfway.
Point. Not even halfway.
Not even halfway.
So we will have to see how this all shakes out. Brian, before we run out of time, let's make sure we get to our stories of the week this week. We always like to grab some stories that we make sure that we cover, we don't miss out on. So, Brian, you brought kind of an interesting one to the table this week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
My story, we're going to go all the way out to Japan, where the land of the rising sun, and also the land where people have forgotten how to smile. That's correct. We are going to go to Kiko Kawano. Am I pronouncing it right?
I believe so.
Kaiko. We'll go Kaiko. No, Kiko, because Kaiko just sounds very anti-Semitic.
Sounds
so we're
wrong.
not going to go with it.
Sounds very wrong.
Kaiko Kawano is teaching a class through her company, Iga Owiko. I'm butchering this shit.
Nail it.
God damn it.
That's awesome.
Damn it. Which translates to smile education. Can you stop? Anywho, so she's teaching a class that is letting people learn how to smile again, because they have been wearing masks for so long that they no longer know how to smile. So here's an example. There's a picture of her. So I'm just going to read some portions of the article and then comment. People in Japan who have become so accustomed to wearing a face mask have turned to the help of a professional to learn to smile again. While the Japanese government lifted its recommendation to wear masks for COVID prevention in March, many residents seemingly realized that they have forgotten how to execute a smile. Lessons to perfect a perfect grin come at a cost. $55, which actually is not that much, for a one-on-one session. I once spent $900 on a one-on-one session. I didn't even smile once during it.
Not once.
$55 for a one-on-one session to teach people how to smile. Here's a quote from one of her students. Oh, man, I just really should not have done this article because I'm just butchering names. Just Himawaru Yoshida. Himawari Yoshida said, I hadn't used my facial muscles much during COVID. Himawari is a 20-year student at the Kiwanos, adding that she's taking the course at the recommendation of her school to prepare for the job market. Can you imagine going to school and having your guidance counselor say to you, go take this course because you're not smiling enough?
Right.
Absolutely ludicrous. She teaches something that's called the Hollywood style smiling technique, where she teaches how to achieve a crescent eye and round cheeks plus also learning to shape the edges of the mouth to show 8 upper teeth. Like, I don't know why you want to
Very
show upper teeth.
specific.
She said that she has seen a 4-fold increase in demand for classes post-COVID, which is the absolute batshit insanity that she was teaching this class before COVID. So
Right.
before COVID, she was sitting there being like, hey, I will teach you how to smile, which is literally something babies, maybe not out of the womb, but
But
babies, literally 2-day-old babies are smiling. As soon as they can open up their eyes, they're smiling. One of the exercises instructs students to hold up mirrors to their faces and stretch the sides of their mouths with their fingers to get used to the feeling.
It's a
How
nice
am I
smile
doing,
you
Ron?
got there. You're doing good. It looks very natural.
Oh, it's very natural. Culturally, a smile signifies that I'm not holding a gun and I'm not a threat, she said to Reuters, adding that an influx of international tourists could mean learning how to communicate again using facial expressions. According to a recent poll, 55% of Japanese people are still wearing masks as often as they were when the government guidance was in place, while just 8% of Japanese citizens are not wearing a mask whatsoever. Which we're going to close the article with Kawano saying, I think there's a growing need for people to smile.
Well,
And
there
I
you
would
go.
like to let Japan know that the pandemic ended a while ago.
All right.
Ron.
Very nice. Yes.
What's your story of the week?
So this one, I know you are a huge fan of the show Extreme Cheapskates on the TLC channel. So you may have seen
That is wildly anti-Semitic, Ron.
you may have seen this episode. So the episode, the first part is crazy to begin with. So it centers around this family, husband and wife, Kevin and Tracy Stapleton, who have 2 children. Their household income is $7,400 a month, but apparently they spend $1,800 a month on groceries, an additional $700 eating out at restaurants. That's $2,500 a month on food.
Sure.
Once their other expenses are accounted for, the Stapletons spend about $500 more than the total amount they bring in each month, which led to TLC bringing in Extreme Cheapskate, former pro wrestler turned TV personality Goldilocks, who I have no idea who this is. I don't know where she was a pro wrestler, but she apparently only spends just $84 a month on a food for herself. And it's because she grows a lot of food herself through composting. And Brian, what does she use for compost?
Her family's fecal matter.
She uses exactly. She uses the family poop, and here's a still photo from the episode with Goldie with 2 handfuls of compost from her family poop. So she gives instructions saying, first dump kitchen scraps, then you're going to layer it with some of your human poo, and in between each time you poo, you throw in leaves scrunched up or sawdust, and it covers the smell. In a year, it will have dissolved into the most incredible soil. You've turned waste into resources. Absolutely brilliant. Probably not surprisingly, the Stapletons were not completely on board with that.
Question. You've composted before. Does it still smell like shit after you're done composting?
I haven't composted in quite a while, but I can't imagine how it stops smelling like shit.
You know, Ron, the first rule of improv is you yes and.
Yes and, yeah.
So
Yes,
when I say, Ron, I know you're a big fan of composting, you're not supposed to say, well, actually, I've never composted. You just roll with it.
Yeah, I apologize. My bad.
Very disappointed in you, Ron. I've never composted, but I've been at people's houses who were in the process of it. Just smells awful. And it's only a matter of time before New York City starts requiring people to compost.
Yeah, it's going to be nationwide, I can imagine.
Well, that's if the Jew liberals continue to take over, the Zionist march across this country.
Brian, I know one story you also wanted to make sure that we got to was the ghost plane that crashed in Virginia. This was last Sunday, a week ago yesterday. Apparently, this private Cessna plane took off from Tennessee, trying to
Takes off
fly
from
to
Tennessee on its
LaGuardia.
way. Do you have a map? I know this is a last minute, Matt, but Matt, if you could pull up a map of the route that this plane took while I talk,
Sure.
Ron, you can listen. I know, Matt, while Matt's looking that up. But so this is one of the stories, and it's happened a couple times in my lifetime, but I'm utterly fascinated. I don't know if I'm the only one. Um, there was a golfer a couple years ago who was on a ghost plane, and what a ghost plane is a plane where they theorize where somehow there is some type of gasket leak inside the cockpit, or where the cockpit depressurizes, causing there to be the lack of oxygen, and basically everybody on the plane passes out and or passes away while the plane is still operating.
Right.
So the plane is still flying on autopilot while everybody on the plane is dead. So you've got this plane at 25,000 feet up in the air, just flying at its regular pace, nobody at the wheel. I wish I remembered the name of the golfer, but if somebody could look it up.
It was Payne Stewart, I believe.
Payne Stewart, who was he was a major name at the time.
Yeah.
And what I remember was when his ghost plane occurred, it was live national news.
Oh yeah, they literally followed the plane, like they had the camera on the plane for the number of hours until it started to make its final descent.
And I sat at home watching on TV. You could actually see the plane, and it's just going. There's nothing to see. It's just a plane in the air. And they're like, nobody is flying that plane. Nobody is moving on this plane. This plane has been non-communicative. So there was a case this past week on a flight that left from Tennessee that was being run by I want to say an oil baron's daughter.
I believe so, yes.
Wow, this was harsh. You like gladiator movies? It's good comment. Good comment, Mike. Even Matt comes in with a good one every now and then.
Every now and then.
So there were 4 people on the plane, if I'm not correct. The pilot, co-pilot. There was this woman and her daughter.
Correct.
that had visited her parents in Tennessee, were flying back to the Hamptons in New York.
Right.
Not long after this plane takes off, it becomes unresponsive is actually the term. It becomes unresponsive. So this plane is flying up to New York, and nobody is responding to air traffic control. They scramble F-18s, I believe.
I believe so, yes.
They scramble military jets because now they have a flight that is not responding. We all know that the last time this happened was 9/11, when we had 4 passenger planes that were not responding. So the first reaction is not necessarily, oh, that's got to be a ghost plane. The first one is this a terrorist attack? Has somebody hijacked this plane?
Right.
So the flight of this plane from Tennessee all the way diagonally northeast as it approaches Long Island in New York, Long Island if you're local, before it makes this very bizarre 360-degree turn and then travels southwest, continuing over Washington, D.C. As it approaches Washington, D.C. is when the military response to it comes in at a complete second level. Within, I think, the states of Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, residents heard a sonic boom as military jets were going at supersonic speeds, faster than the speed of sound, as they tried to track this plane down. And supposedly, I'm not going to claim conspiracy theory or whatnot, but supposedly this flight basically ran out of fuel, and then went into a tailspin, coming down at a speed like a couple thousand miles an hour as it hit the land, created a gigantic crater in the woodlands of Virginia, which was, I believe they said, about a 4-hour hike from the nearest major highway. Like, it wasn't near a road.
Right.
and they were finally able to reach, and they basically were like, there's just little pieces of everything here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is large. I read as you can clearly see, most of these stories, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here.
This one you dug down into.
The only thing I'm missing is the names of the people on board. But I just find these stories absolutely fascinating, that we're all going about our daily lives. Meanwhile, 20,000 feet up in the air is an airplane that literally nobody can control. There's no way that, this isn't like a Steven Seagal movie where you can launch a Marine in the air to land on the plane and then fly it down. This is absolutely insane.
All right. Well, one final story, Brian, and I know this announcement came out right before the podcast, and you got a little teary-eyed at this. But Pat Sajak has announced that this September, his 41st season on Wheel of Fortune will be his last, and he'll be retiring after this next season of Wheel of Fortune.
Listen, I always liked him. I thought he was entertaining. I know the New York Post seems to have taken an issue with him as late. I've seen probably about 3 or 4 stories over the past couple months where they've got videos of him basically being a dick to the people on the show. I'm not sure whether I didn't click on any of the stories, frankly, because I'm team Pat Sajak. Can't really say that I'm team Vanna White anymore, though I do have an interesting story about Vanna White and the Playboy magazine she was in, but we'll tell that during After Dark.
All right. Makes sense. And speaking of After Dark, we're also doing that this evening. It is exclusive content for our Patreon subscribers. It'll start at 9:30. If you want to join us and you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, go to ronandbrianpodcast.com. Click in the upper right-hand side to become a patron. If you join at the $10 level, you get access to the live broadcast taking place at 9:30 tonight. No one noticed the background that we used for tonight's episode. Of course, the photo of one of the bathrooms at Mar-a-Lago with all of the supposed alleged sensitive documents stacked up. I assume we'll have to address the Trump indictment at some point, but I will say
you and I will say this. I'm trying to cut you off. Say what you were going to say.
No, I will say it was heartening to see Bill Barr say, he feels that if even half of what is in the indictment is true, that
Sure.
Trump is toast.
What I was going to say is that you and I, and it's been very special, how during 2021, 2020, like we spent so much time talking about Trump. We never actually verbalized to each other that we were done talking about him.
We just stopped.
And we just, after the election, after January 6th, when he left the office, we had, it was literally, and it's one of the few times in my life where I've had a unspoken agreement. I know people think it's rare, me not verbalizing every thought I have, but it was such a beautiful thing that you and I had agreed we were not going to talk about Trump. And I think we've done it for about a year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And
I don't think so. I think we talked January 6th, and I think after that, it just really, I think January 6th, we just got tired of it.
I think we both said, at least I can speak for myself, which was just the fact of like, he's not relevant anymore. He's not president. He lost the election. It's time for us as a country to move forward and stop looking back. Stop giving him the ability to cause the world anxiety. Fuck him.
Agreed. So, well, anyway, let's wrap this up, Brian. We've got to get ready for After Dark. But thanks to all of you that joined us on Monday. We will be broadcasting again Sunday night. Domestic terrorism and Brian's Wi-Fi notwithstanding. Anything else you have, Brian, before we cut on out this week?
No, this was listen, after my struggles yesterday and my sense of having let you down, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity for redoing episode 261 and letting me deliver as I have today.
And deliver you have, my friend. Well, thank you all for joining us. Patreon folks, we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Everybody else, we will catch you on Sunday night.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again next week.